Welcome! You're listening to Making Relationships Work. We're a company focused on women and their marriage. We lead and teach women just like you how to grow into and access, whenever you need to, your wise woman's self. The part of you who is deeply connected to your purpose, your innate wisdom, and your husband and family. We teach women in marriages how to rebuild trust and connection, to work through conflicts no matter how deep, no matter how painful, and to lead your marriage to a place where the two of you experience marriage mastery. This podcast is about learning the systems and techniques that truly work to reconnect you back into your marriage so that you can experience the freedom that comes with a masterful marriage. Since this podcast is totally free, if you're getting tons of value and you want to support us and make sure that you get more of this good stuff, subscribe below and rate and review our podcast today. Now, on to the show. Hello, everybody. Hello, it's me, it's Meg. I am welcoming you today to my Facebook Live in our free women's group, which is called Women Making Marriages Work on Facebook. So you're very welcome to join us there. And hello to everybody watching or listening along at YouTube or in our podcast, which you can also find. Leilani will pop the comments in the comments. She'll pop where to go to find that. So, hey, Leilani, I'm going to check that you can hear me before I go ahead. So just give me a thumbs up or let me know. I tricked everybody a bit this morning because I've come on a little bit earlier than I normally do. And that's because I've got a really big conversation to have with you today. And it's a really important one. So I wanted to make sure that we've got lots of time so I can answer lots of questions about it. It's around the disconnect in a marriage. How do you get to a space where you don't have each other anymore? And is it possible to turn it around? And can that person be you that leads that? That's essentially what we're going to cover today. And what I've titled this as is the choice every person has to turn towards loyalty to your partner or away into disconnect, and how we make that choice in a relationship, any relationship. We're talking marriage in this group, but you could put it in as a child of a parent, or you could put it in as a friend or a colleague, or a sibling, you know. But today we'll do parents. No, we won't. We'll do marriage. We'll do marriage. How funny. But we're going to talk about why it's so important for you to notice when you're choosing to opt out. And you might also like to expand this definition around to your husband and notice when he is opting out. That's going to be something that you can do as the scientist that you are. And so what we're going to talk about is how important it is to make a decision to not break the connection. So if you think about it, and I've used the word slighted in my description of what this Facebook Live is going to be about. But if you feel a sense of hurt at the hands of your husband, so he has done something which has hurt you, or you feel like he has slighted you or let you down, or not shown up the way that you wish that he would. If those things have happened, or things haven't gone in the direction that you hoped that they would, there's a gap between where you thought it would be and where it actually landed. And because of any of those things, you've had a reaction which is one where you feel upset or pained. In that moment, you have a choice. And in that moment, most people, so I'm talking to you, beloved women, but I'm talking to any person as well. Most people choose to break the connection. And they do that because they have this internal, overwhelming kind of filling up feeling of not being able to cope, or feeling overwhelmed, or feeling so many big emotions that we need to break the interaction that your brain, your beautiful brain, is saying, that's why I feel like this. And so what you tend to do is you choose a strategy to cope with that big feeling. And what tends to be the most common strategies that you choose are avoiding him, giving him the cold shoulder, using anger. So you might do it in a passive way, or you might do it in an aggressive way. You start to use contempt or criticism or defensiveness. And in all of those responses, what happens is there's a break in connection. And so if we kind of spend a minute thinking about this, perhaps the break comes for you when you experience or perceive that slight from your husband, or perhaps the break comes with the reaction that you have. Perhaps the two of you are responsible for the break. Perhaps it's more one person than the other, and perhaps that changes on any given day. And so it's interesting for us to kind of lay this out in segments so that we can kind of really see what we're talking about. The thing about using avoidance or the cold shoulder or anger or contempt or criticism or defensiveness is we do those things to protect ourselves, but in protecting ourselves, we do more damage because we're withdrawing so that we can self-soothe, so that we can feel better, so that we can feel as though everything in our little world that we can control is okay. And also we kind of want to inflict a bit of pain on our husband, or we want to try and teach him a lesson, or we really kind of just need a minute because that was hard to deal with. And so my question to you is, do you think that really works? And of course the answer is no. It might give you an interim sense of power or a small amount of kind of regaining your footing. But a few minutes later or a few days later, you realize that you didn't actually get done what you wanted to get done. You didn't actually get the outcome you were looking for. And how could you? Because in doing this, there's no conversation, there's no learning, there's only a behavior response and an emotional break. And those two things alone don't create what it is you want, which is connection and an ability to work through things that hurt. Because when you're in any kind of relationship, the two of you will hurt each other. That's kind of how it works. And you've probably heard me talk about this a lot before, but there's this idea of a soul connection. And I love it particularly in a marriage because you're choosing one person, yeah, that you are committing to for life. And when you choose that person, they become a mirror for you. And when they become a mirror for you, you can see the parts of yourself that need work reflected back in what they are doing or saying to you, yeah? So we marry our greatest teacher, and that's amazing. But in order for us to do the work around the kind of contract we have with each other, we need to be able to receive our opportunities for learning. We need to be able to receive the growth. And in order to do that, we can't be using avoidance. We can't be using cold shoulder, anger, contempt, criticism, defensiveness, because my loves, do you know what those things do? They break you. Yes? They don't bring you closer together to come as a team and to be each other's best friend and to be each other's kind of person. They break the connection. And when they break the connection, essentially what happens is you're not doing the work you need to do, that the two of you signed up with each other to do. Do you feel me? Do you get that? And so our opportunity here is to do something where we get hurt by our partners, because they will hurt us. Yes, they have work to do. We have work to do. Our marriage needs work. Everything needs work. Like Oprah says, work for you and work for you and work for you. And that is normal, my loves. That is normal. It's just the how you do it that's hurting you. Yeah. And so in those moments where you feel slighted or you feel hurt or you feel misunderstood or your expectation was here and instead you got this, and that gap is hurting you, and you say, well, husband, it is your fault. Or we can inverse it. Wife, it is your fault. Yeah. we have an opportunity to show up differently. And why would you want to show up differently? Let's talk about that. So what we know is that when we start with a disconnect, when we start from that place of I'm choosing to give you the cold shoulder or avoid you or use contempt or criticism or defensiveness or anger to teach you a lesson, but without really communicating with you, I'm going to start the process of not connecting with you. Okay? And so I break the connection. And when I break the connection, there has to be a repair. And most people in marriages don't know how to do an effective repair. And when it happens in year 1 of marriage, it's not such a big deal. There's a lot of love to kind of carry you along. And in year 2, same. Year 3, less. Year 4, yes, less. And so on. But these breaks start to layer and layer and layer and layer. And eventually they become bigger than the amount of goodwill in the marriage. And so you can get away with these maladaptive coping strategies, which are the avoidance, the cold shoulder, the anger, the contempt, the defensiveness, the criticism. You can get away with them to a point before they start doing damage. And the first sign of damage is that break in connection. Now, that's only damage when you don't know how to repair it, truly repair it and learn from it. But most marriages don't know how to do that. So we're going to count that as damage. And you know what happens after that? The next thing that happens is you start doing a negative comparison. And a negative comparison says, if I was married to somebody else, this wouldn't happen. Does that make sense? So you start to say, my husband is worth less after this incident than my experience of what someone else would do. And that negative comparison, when that creeps in, instead of a connected marriage, you've got 2 steps away from each other. Can you repair that? Of course you can. Do you know how to repair that? Probably not. What happens after that is that we start to, so if those aren't repaired, and this usually takes a bit of time, my loves, but the third thing that happens after that is that you start to see that each other is not there for the other person anymore, or as much as you would like. So when you're in those early years of limerence, which is when there's this beautiful cocktail of pheromones and hormones that allow you to fall in love, this biological chemistry with this psychological chemistry, it's a beautiful time. It lasts about 2 years. And so when you're in that time, if someone needs you, you're going to be there for them 80% of the time. It's a really healthy number. But when you're in this space where you're downgrading your connection, and you're doing that because you're breaking the connection, and then you're adding in that negative comparison, the third thing that happens is that those opportunities to come together drop. So it's about 80% or 80, even higher, I think, in those early years, and it drops to around 30% of the time you both are there for each other at the time when you need each other. And in a masterful marriage, it stays at around 80%, even higher. It stays up there because the foundations are good, the loyalty is strong, the commitment, the trust, the friendship, all of that stuff is strong. But in a marriage where you're making these breaks, you're starting to have this punishing effect on each other, where you're turning the breaking connection, where you're trying to teach somebody a lesson but without really teaching them. What happens is you then start to have that negative comparison about how he's even worse and you could find even better, which is a story that serves you but is not probably true, and is also not allowing you to resourcefully take responsibility for where you are in your marriage, because the two of you co-created this. Yeah. And so then all of a sudden, then you're not there for each other. And what does that do? More separation, more damage. Do you know how to repair that? Probably not. But can you repair that? Absolutely. Yes. And so after that, you start to have a sense of hypervigilance creep in, because this starts to feel like a place that's not safe. And whose fault is that? His fault. Yeah. Or if he's leading this, your fault. And so you can see how this cascade happens. Yeah. And so when you stay here for long enough, this ends in a betrayal or an infidelity or a divorce. Yeah. It ends in misery because it keeps going down. This is just the first couple of steps. And you can see already that it's going down and down and down. And what I want you to know is that if you're on the downward spiral, it doesn't end somewhere good by accident. If you're on the downward spiral, it means that you need new skills, new learnings, new ways to interrupt old habits and patterns, and a new way to be able to communicate and connect with each other. In essence, your first marriage, the marriage you're in, we call that marriage 1, isn't working anymore. You actually need to build marriage 2 because you're in this separation and distance cascade. And do you know why? Excuse me. Do you know why this is so dangerous? Left unchecked is we end up really far apart. You end up where you are both looking for different houses to live in, or you're both consulting divorce attorneys, or you're thinking about where you put your money to keep it safe. And you've turned this person that is your person into an enemy, into someone you have to defend against. And it all happened a lot of decisions ago. And what I want you to know is that for every decision you make that takes you further away, you can make a different decision to come closer. And that this is possible, particularly when you pair the decision to come closer with knowing how to do things differently. And this is the information that you need to understand about your marriage. You need to understand that your go-to strategies like avoidance, cold shoulder, anger, contempt, criticism, defensiveness, they don't work, my loves. You've got to stop them. If you're using that strategy all the time, like 2 or 3 or 4 times a week or every day, my love, you're in trouble. You need a new way. Okay? And so I'm going to show you how to do something different, but I'm also going to ask Leilani to post my masterclass in the comments, because the masterclass has really good foundational skills that you need to know. You need to know those skills. Now, so I'm just thinking about how I'm going to teach you this. In order for you to choose to come together rather than to disconnect, you need to know where you are in your body, in your mind, in your marriage map, your own map that you two have created, because you're going to have to start to make a different decision. So in that moment where you make a decision to go away from your husband, to do that avoidance, cold shoulder, anger, etc., where you're punishing him, you're teaching him a lesson, or you're trying to self-soothe and cope, I want you to find a way to not break the connection. And then I want you to see what happens. Now, this might sound simple, but it's not easy. Simple things are often the things you need to do, but we don't do them because it's hurtful and it's hard. And your brain and your body's chemistry is set up to try and move you away from pain. So really what we're going to do first is teach you how to have a higher tolerance of discomfort. That's not to say you don't hold a boundary that's appropriate. That is to say that you don't believe everything you think, and to recognize that you are probably safer than you realize. So when you add that beautiful gem of wisdom, and I suggest you write that down, into not breaking that connection when it hurts, and instead managing what it feels like to be in your body, then you can have a conversation about what's actually hurting you. And so do you then come towards each other rather than break? Yes, you do. Will that work for any relationship you have? Yes, it will. Is this the foundational premise that my entire program is built upon? Yes, my loves, it is. It is about knowing yourself. It is about knowing where you are and knowing you can choose to do whatever you want at any given moment. You're not a victim to circumstance. My loves, you are not even a victim. And I want you to understand that if you're not doing it differently, it's probably because you're missing some skills to understand how to do it differently. And the best thing about skills is that you can learn them. So you make the decision that it's going to be different, and then you go and figure out how you're going to do it. It's simple. Is it easy? That's probably not so easy, right? Or you wouldn't be here saying, well, I couldn't figure, because you're here because you haven't figured it out yet. But I'm here to help. So I want you to watch that masterclass. Leilani's going to give you the link to book a breakthrough call, which is free with us, if you want to, because that breakthrough call allows you to have a conversation about your specific circumstances. And that is really important, because what I know for sure is that you are a beautiful and complex person who is married to a beautiful and complex person and has a marriage that is beautiful and complex. And so doing a typing post doesn't allow me to be able to really help you. Yeah, I'll always give you the answer that I can, but what you'll find is that it's much bigger than that. Of course it is. And so we need the calls in order to help. So that's why we do them. And that's where we help. So I want you to have those things, and I want you also to practice doing things differently and to practice what it feels like to change direction, and to notice and appreciate the strength and wisdom that it takes to change direction. All right, my loves, I am going to go in a minute, but I want to see if there's any questions first. So if you have any questions, now's the time to put them in the comments. I'm really happy to answer them. I want you to very deeply understand that when you can influence this point, when you can take this moment and change it into something that serves you, that it starts a cascade towards closeness. It starts a cascade towards a sense of a very connected marriage, a marriage that can withstand anything, a marriage that is us against the world, where it's we, not two me's. I'm not defending myself against you. I am under the same umbrella, deeply connected and in love with you. And we are 15 years in, 20 years in, 25 years in, and it's getting better and better and better. That is possible, my loves. It's not only possible, you can have that with any decision that you make. And that's what I want you to understand. I need you to understand that you can have the life and marriage that you want. You just need to learn how to do it differently. And I want you to understand that when you beautiful wise woman, when you decide to do it differently, you get access to transform the experience of others around you. You get to transform the experience of the lives of your kids who watch you and learn, because they do, right? They learn by osmosis the things that you know, and they start to formulate what marriage is and what they expect in a marriage and what success is and how to do it in a way that brings you closer together when there's conflict, when there's heartbreak, when there's worry. How they learn from you about how to handle that. So are you teaching them to break connection, or are you teaching them to come closer together and to be supported and be a support? So I want you to know that when you decide to do this, your children's life will change. They will not have to figure this out at the age that you are. They will figure it out at the age that they are, right? And then when they get married in 10 or 20 years' time, they'll have questions for you, but their foundation will be just so different than the one that you have. And it's not your fault that your foundation is this way. It's just this beautiful evolution that we're in right now. And this evolution that we're in right now means we have access to more data than we've ever had before. We've got more ideas of what success is and how to do it. We know better, essentially, than our generations before us did. And so when you can access that knowledge, you can access those new skills, you can literally have a totally different life than the one your parents had or your family had. And that means that you can change the lives of your children. You can show up differently at work. You can show up differently in the community, and you can be a different kind of friend all of the things that allow you to grow and be a matriarch and a leader in your community. And this is your birthright. This is the whole point of your existence, is to grow into that matriarch and to do the work around whatever the resistance or the blockages or the hard parts are for you. And so I invite you to take up this opportunity to have the life you've always dreamt of. If you have dreamt the life that you have, what you need to understand is that it is nowhere near the same as anyone else's life, because it is your dream. So you can't dream something that's not meant to happen for you. You can't make up something that is unrelated to your path and purpose when it's your dream. And if you are here, then your dream is to have a beautiful marriage and to lead a life that is connected, yes? That is kind and calm and loving and full of wisdom, where you receive your learnings with grace and then you model in your communities about how to walk through life in a way where you are powerful and kind, vulnerable and humble, connected and strong. This is your calling. This is your life. I want you to take that today. I want you to pick that up today and decide to claim the new skills that you need to start coming back together with your husband, and to start coming back together in your communities, to start coming back together in your families, to start coming back together in your parent-child relationships. So here are the ways you're going to do it. You're going to watch my masterclass if you haven't already. There are skills in there that you need to understand. Then you're going to book a call, and we are going to get you really clear on what you need to know, where you are, what the gaps are, and how we're going to get you there. Okay, if we can help you, we will, in terms of working with us. And if we think that you will be better off somewhere else, we will show you where to go and what that looks like. Okay, it's a service that we give to the community because we adore you and we want to have the light on. Yes, so that you can turn your lights on and we can together light up the world with connection, calmness, kindness, solidarity, strength, and love. All right, my darlings. There are no questions down here, so it's time for me to go. I love you all, and I'll see you all on Thursday night. We're going to do a beautiful catch-up together, and I can't wait to see you then. Much love to you and your families. Bye, darlings.